representing the original dig from which the reconstruction was made possible. The archaeologist who directed that 5-year dig was Richard Hall.
Well, we're actually in the original dig. It was by digging out the hole that we created the basement that we've set the whole centre in. They're not precisely over the original building spots, but they're very, very close to them. Well, people come into this part of the centre having seen what we think the Viking Age town looked like 1,000 years ago. And by this time they're probably saying to themselves, well, how do they know it looked like that? What's the evidence on which it's based? So what we've done here is to take them back up the same area that they've just looked at, reconstructed, between the same two tenements. And we've put back in mirror image the building remains that we dug up during the course of the excavation. So you enter down there from the riverside, and you see the area of backyards with the wells and the pits and the latrines that you saw being used next door. And on the other side, there's the very stumpy post remains of the warehouse. And people are beginning to say then, I imagine, well, they haven't found an awful lot there. They're being a bit ambitious next door. But we come up into here, and we actually take them into the wattle building that they went into next door. And just as there was a hearth in the middle of that, so there's a hearth in the middle of this that the people were sitting around where the lady was baking the bread. And just as there was a bench where the chap was sitting quaffing his ale, so there are the posts that represent that bench to us archaeologically. And there are the walls themselves, the woven twig work, and the bigger posts outside. The rewards were immense because we got these timber buildings, the best preserved structures of that date ever found in the country. And we found, I think it was about 16,000 individually interesting objects and vast amounts of pottery and bone, all the things which sound very boring but looked at by experts can put back a complete story of lifestyle and daily life as it was 1,000 years ago.
Senior conservator Jim Spriggs.
What the visitor will actually see in this street are the actual timbers that we found on Coppergate, which has now been preserved, and they have been fitted back into their correct positions relative to each other.
But how were the ancient timbers preserved?
It's a very slow process we're using. The process is based on a water-soluble synthetic wax called polyethylene glycol, which gradually permeates the wood and replaces the water in the wood with the wax. And after an 18-month period, we hope that most of the water has come out of the wood and the wax has gone in. Viking craftsmen were very good woodworkers indeed. The timbers from these buildings show that they used very good quality timber cut down probably locally from forests growing around about York. They used very simple tools and they didn't do more work than was actually necessary. The construction of these buildings is extremely simple but entirely adequate for the type of building they were making.
But at the end of the day, the success of Jorvik will depend on something new in British museum tradition: the ability to make money out of history.